Anita Sarkeesian. She's a gem of a gal. If you don't know who Anita Sarkeesian is, she has a YouTube channel called Feminist Frequency. You can kind of guess as to what the topic of most of her videos are. She has a series in that channel called Tropes versus Women in Video Games, and a couple weeks ago she came up with a new video called The Lady Sidekick. And I know that many YouTubers have already made videos on her for different reasons, but I thought it would just be fun for me to do one myself, plus I'm just bored, so let's move forward, shall we?
Okay, it looks like I can open them from here, but I won't be able to come in with you. Here goes.
In 2013, 2K Games released BioShock Infinite, the eagerly anticipated follow-up to the earlier, hugely successful BioShock games. Infinite's story centers on a man named Booker DeWitt, a private investigator with a bloody past who takes on a mysterious assignment: bring us the girl and wipe away the dead. What follows is Booker's adventure to the flying city of Columbia, where the girl, Elizabeth, has been imprisoned in a tower for her entire life. Busting her out of captivity while she busts out of her corset,
I like how she had to add in that one little part about her busting out of her corset, even though the only time she's ever really wearing a corset is in that one little trailer. And in the rest of the game, she's pretty decently covered up.
Booker shoots his way across Columbia, getting caught up in all sorts of drama in the process, as the game tells players a garbage story which suggests that oppressed people are just as bad as their oppressors and that the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But that's much too big a can of worms for us to open in this video. Let's just focus on Elizabeth.
Yes, please do. I am very curious as to how you are going to make Elizabeth seem sexist towards women. I am very, very curious. Please continue.
Elizabeth possesses an incredible ability to open portals to other timelines, an ability that plays a significant role in the plot as Booker and Elizabeth hop forward and backward and from side to side in time, leaping from one version of Columbia to another, and sometimes thrusting Booker into the past or the future. So as a plot device which drives elements of the game's narrative, she's very significant. In gameplay terms, however, Elizabeth serves a different kind of role, that of a glorified door opener.
Holy shit. Are you kidding me? Have you ever played BioShock Infinite? Because I have, and I can tell you that Elizabeth is a lot more than a glorified door opener. She can throw you health. She can throw you ammo. That portal opening ability that she has, that allows you to open these little portals that will insert objects such as turrets, ammo boxes, weapon caches, hooks for you to jump onto and grapple onto. She is so much more than a glorified door opener. If anything, you're the only one reducing her to that much.
As with most shooters, BioShock Infinite often puts you into situations where you can't progress until you've cleared an area of enemies. The way it frequently does this is by blocking doors to the next area that can't be opened by Booker. Only Elizabeth can do this, which she does only when all the enemies have been killed.
Because, as she's made it clear in the game, she says herself that she's picked up this skill while sneaking around the tower. It's a plot point in the story, so I don't see what the issue is.
For all of her tremendous powers, Elizabeth is reduced by the game's mechanics to doing the most basic and menial of tasks, and waiting around for her to open a door becomes a significant aspect of how players experience her.
Okay, I'm fairly certain you've actually never played this game before. Because in my own personal opinion, Elizabeth is one of the few companions I actually gave a shit about in video games. She's interesting. She's this mysterious girl you know nothing about. You don't know why you're rescuing her. You don't know anything about her, and that's kind of the main point of the story. The way that she interacts with the environment, also interesting. It's not just her abilities that give the players a chance to experience her. It's who she is, as a character in the game.
Let me scout ahead, see if there's some way to move forward.
Of course, she performs other actions as well, sometimes tossing Booker ammo, first aid, or other useful items, or opening tears through which he can have her summon things like weapons or killer robots to help him in combat.
Oh, so you are aware of her other abilities in the game? So then why do you think she's a menial character? Is it just because she's a woman and there aren't exactly a lot of examples for you to choose from, so you're just kind of grasping at straws here? Because that's what it seems like.
Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with the idea of characters who play a supporting role in combat situations,
Unless it's a woman.
but Elizabeth is an example of a female sidekick who is reduced to a tool.
Says you, and only you.
There aren't gameplay mechanics that allow you to have meaningful interactions with her.
Well, that's because this isn't an RPG. This isn't a game where you can click on a character and all of a sudden have multiple dialogue options and have a conversation with that person. Every interaction you have with her is scripted in the game. And I don't know about you, but a lot of them are pretty meaningful and emotional at times.
She just opens doors and dispenses useful things, and her tear opening powers are not her own, but yours to call on and control with the press of a button.
Oh, fuck off. So now you're saying that she's a slave to us? Is that what you're saying? That's what it sounds like you're saying. Fuck off, Anita.
Elizabeth, a little help?
Looks simple enough.
At other times, she's less like a person and more like a sexualized slot machine tossing you the occasional coin.
Sexualized? This is sexualized? This. You're saying Elizabeth is a sexualized character. Explain that. Explain that shit to me.
Here you go.
As a glorified gatekeeper, Elizabeth joins a long tradition of female sidekicks, including Alex from Half-Life 2 and its follow-up episodes, and Yorda from the much-beloved Ico, whose magic is needed to activate doors, staircases, and other mechanisms that allow players to advance. Yorda also has a distinction of being the quintessential example of what I call the damsel escort mission.
Because God forbid there's a woman out there who can't defend herself. I mean, it's not like we're giving Krav Maga lessons or Taekwondo lessons to every single woman in the world. So what? She's a woman and she can't defend herself, so we, as the warrior, have to escort her. What's wrong with that? I bet you if the roles were reversed and it was the woman escorting the man, this wouldn't be an issue for you, would it?
You know, after making 3 whole videos about damsels, I'd kinda hoped to never have to talk about them again.
Oh, believe me, Anita, we were hoping for the same damn thing.
But gaming's love of using helpless women as both narrative and gameplay devices was too much for even those videos to contain. Damsel escort missions occur when a female character joins the male player character, but is largely helpless, and rather than being a clear benefit to the player, she feels more like a burden. In Ico, players free Yorda from a cage early on. She then joins Ico on this journey, and much of the game consists of solving puzzles so that Yorda, who can't make leaps or climb walls on her own, can traverse the environment. Meanwhile, players also need to protect her from the shadow monsters who sometimes try to whisk her away.
Okay, so I've never played this game before, so bear with me here, but going off everything Anita has said, it sounds like in this game you play as this boy who is escorting this girl. This boy has abilities and skills that this girl does not possess, so she needs a lot of help traversing through the world of the game. And she's a girl, and you play as a boy. I'm saying that because it seems like the only issue Anita has with this is just that fact that you play as a boy and you are escorting a girl through the game. The fact that she has a vagina and she's practically helpless is her issue with this game. This is the issue with Anita in general. This is a trend for her. If a woman is seen as helpless, then the game developers who made the game are misogynists and sexist towards women. Oh, but if there's a helpless man, it's fine. You know, it happens. There are helpless men out there. If there's a woman wearing anything besides a fucking parka or a poncho, then she's a sexualized symbol in the game. But if there's a man who's wearing a tight-fitted tank top and shorts, then, you know, boys will be boys, I guess. This is why so many people have issues with you, Anita. This is why in the majority of your... I'm not even going to say majority. In every single one of your videos, this is why you disable your like and dislike ratio and your comments. Because I can only imagine the kind of comments that you get. I'm not saying that you deserve these obscure comments that you're getting, such as death threats and rape threats. I'm just saying that this is why people have an issue with you. This is why you feel like you need to go to the UN and create a safe place on the internet for people like you.
Spoiler alert. Yes, in the ending cutscene, Yorda carries Aiko out of the crumbling castle. But what the narrative tells us or shows us in the end doesn't undo the impact of how we experience a character through the gameplay. Another classic damsel escort mission occurs in Resident Evil 4, where Ashley Graham, the president's daughter, has caused players tremendous frustration over the years by burdening them with the need to protect and manage her.
Well, that's probably because the president's daughter never really thought she would be in this situation. So she probably never saw the need to take any martial arts, learn how to shoot guns, or anything of that sort. She's never been in a combat situation before, so of course she's going to need somebody who's been in combat situations and who is experienced in using firearms and is experienced in martial arts to protect her. Of course. Not every woman is a warrior, Anita. I think it's time you accept that. Not every woman wants to be a warrior. Not every woman feels like they're ever going to be in a situation where they're going to need to put somebody in a chokehold or know how to use any kind of firearm.
Whether they're presented as capable or helpless.
No. No. There's no way that you're going to put Ellie from The Last of Us in your video. There is no way that you're going to somehow turn Ellie into a helpless sidekick, into a damsel in distress. No. Although, knowing you, you'll find a way. So let's just see how this goes.
Female companions often encounter situations in which they just can't proceed on their own. Ellie in The Last of Us, for instance, is hard.
Son of a bitch, you are. You are gonna somehow turn Ellie into a helpless sidekick, into a damsel in distress. Wow. Anybody who hasn't played this game, keep in mind that Ellie is a 14-year-old girl. Granted, she has the mouth of a 25-year-old, but she is a 14-year-old girl nonetheless. So let's see how Anita Sarkeesian is somehow going to spin this in her direction.
Hardly a Yorda-like damsel, but when she encounters a body of water, she may as well be, and Joel has to go out of his way to get her across.
Well, Anita, that could be easily explained if you ever played the game, which clearly you have not. This game is set in a post-apocalyptic world. Ellie is one of the few children who has been born into this post-apocalyptic world. She has been stuck inside of a quarantine zone her whole life. I doubt that they had time to refill the public pools in that area, so she's never been able to learn how to swim before. So of course she doesn't know how to swim. Of course she's not going to know, or of course she's not going to be able to get across the little rivers in the game. So she needs Joel, the person who has lived before the virus outbreak and before the world went to post-apocalyptia. Of course she's going to need him to help her travel through the water. See, Anita, if you would just play the games, if you played the games, you wouldn't be making half your videos.
Now look, there's a lot to admire about The Last of Us, but I guarantee you nobody's favorite part of that game was helping Ellie get across the water.
I'll admit it wasn't my favorite part of the game, but all in all, it's part of the plot, and it's part of who Ellie is. It helps develop her as a character. There's always that one part in a game that nobody likes.
A good rule of thumb is that if you spend any portion of a game carrying a female character around, it's a pretty safe bet that it at least has some elements of the damsel escort mission.
So Anita just doesn't want games where you have to save the woman anymore. She just wants that completely taken out of all video games, is what she's saying.
No, you're heavier than you look.
To be clear, there's nothing whatsoever inherently wrong with depictions of people helping each other in times of difficulty.
Again, but unless it's helping a woman, because Anita says so.
If anything, we could do with a lot more narratives that focus on companionship, cooperation, and support. But the models games give us rarely offer experiences in which this kind of support is truly mutual. Instead, we see a pattern of men frequently caring and helping women in situations where they're otherwise helpless.
Define helpless. What do you mean by helpless exactly? Because you've just been throwing that word around. Like, when I hear helpless, I imagine a woman who can't fucking brush her own teeth. That's what I imagine. But to you, it seems like if a woman can't climb a wall, or fight a monster, or fire a gun, or fight, basically, in any way, they're considered helpless. If a woman needs the strength of a man, because typically men are stronger than women, it's just a fact, then they're helpless. So I need you to define for me what exactly you mean by helpless.
This pattern is rooted in sexist ideas about men as protectors and women as the ones who need this kind of protection. It's coded into the gameplay that men are the ones who kill and protect, and that women are the ones who experience moments of helplessness and need to be carried.
Well, that's becoming a little bit less prevalent nowadays, but typically men are the ones who join the army and go off to war. Men are the ones who become law enforcement officers. Men are the ones who take up dangerous construction jobs that could possibly get them killed. So you can kind of understand why men are mostly viewed as the protector and women the... This chair, I swear to God, I hate this chair so goddamn much. Why the fuck did I buy this chair? It's... Sorry. You can understand why men would most likely be seen as a protector. But like I said, it's becoming a little bit less prevalent nowadays as more women are joining the army, more women are taking on construction jobs, and more women are becoming law enforcement officers.
When these female characters are of aid to the player, it's often in rudimentary ways, as a glorified door opener, or even as a more basic tool.
More basic than opening doors? Like what? A door knocker?
In the Ocarina of Time dungeon, inside Jabu Jabu's belly, players must carry the snobby Princess Ruto around, at one point even using her as a weight to press down a switch.
Notice how you yourself use the word snobby as a character description for her. As in, she is taking the stereotypical role of a princess who feels that she can order everybody around. Oh, but you don't see anything wrong with this, do you? Just the fact that Link has to carry her. Right. That makes sense.
And in Metal Gear Solid 5, you've got 4 sidekick options to take with you on missions. A dog, a horse, a robot, and a woman.
I'm sorry. What exactly is your video on? Because I thought your video was on helpless sidekicks, which is the opposite of quiet. Oh, never mind. I understand. It's just because she happens to be wearing a very revealing outfit. Right. Because, you see, you yourself are even realizing that you're running out of shit to talk about, so you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna grab this character who happens to be wearing practically nothing and throw her in my video for no reason and just hope to God that they buy it.
Finally, female companions often function as cheerleaders, doling out little ego boosts to players for gunning down bad guys or pulling off other feats.
Well, I mean, like, it's not like I'm getting much out of the deal to begin with. So yeah, I fucking deserve a pat on the back for everything I'm doing.
I have to get you out of here. Now come with me.
Along with the glorified door opening and the damsel-like aspects, female sidekicks are there to make players feel better about themselves.
Why the hell are you throwing Elena from Uncharted in there? She's one of the most independent characters, female characters, in the game. Other than that other chick. Can't remember her name. What the hell's her name? She's from, like, the second game. It'll come to me at some point.
To make them feel important and skilled.
You did it! You did it! Wow! You're so cool!
You're just trying to impress me.
Were you impressed? Got all those guys all by myself?
But these interactions are rarely depicted as mutually supportive. It's not nearly as common in these scenarios for the male player character to offer emotional support to their female sidekick, to tell her that she's doing a great job.
Well, that's because if I'm most likely playing the character who happens to be a male, I can't interact with my companion in any way. Let it be female or male, unless it's some RPG like Fallout or Skyrim or Dragon Age or any of those that allows me to have actual conversations with dialogue choices. Other than that, I can't interact with them in that way, no matter what their gender.
These particular sidekicks aren't designed as characters that players can actively engage in developing a relationship with. Characters who are fully fleshed out people with their own goals and desires.
Anita, you do realize that, they're not real, right? You're aware of that. You're aware that they're nothing but code and pixels on a screen. Because you're making it sound like they're real people with real feelings and real goals. They're not real. Alright? Get that through your head.
That sometimes require players to compromise their own wants or desires. This pattern of female sidekicks who serve more as gameplay devices, door openers, and ego boosts than as people is a design approach rooted in the idea of games as power fantasy. Players get to feel powerful and important.
Well, yeah. I better feel powerful and important in a game. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, what's the point of my character if I'm not strong, powerful, and important to the story? Otherwise, I might as well just be playing Sims.
Sometimes issuing orders that are obeyed without hesitation or doubt. Companion dynamics in games almost never model what equal footing, cooperation, and collaboration in a relationship might look like, but instead serve to make the player feel like the center of the world, the one in control, which is not at all a model for healthy relationships.
But I am the one in control. I hold all the power. But to the little remark about them obeying my orders without question, well, they wouldn't be a very loyal companion then, would they, if they didn't obey my orders without question, if they didn't trust me enough to obey me. If they didn't trust me to follow my guidance, they wouldn't be very good companions now, would they?
Of course, a huge number of games focus on men fighting alongside other men, and in these games, the male companions often have some of the same characteristics we sometimes see in female companions.
And that's at least 10 more confirms Hunter 2-1 good shooting.
It's very common for male characters to compliment the player on their good shooting, or to breach a door that the player character can't open himself. However, typically these characters are presented as equal participants in the conflict. In shooters ranging from Call of Duty to Gears of War, the player's male companions are armed and active, and are portrayed as playing their part to fend off or eliminate the enemy threat.
Okay, so you showed Killzone, Call of Duty, and Gears of War. All games that take place in war zones in war times. Like my comment that I made before about how men are typically the ones who go off to war. Do you see where I'm going with this? The relationship between the characters in those games are ones you would typically see in any group of soldiers in real life. It's a display of brotherhood, in a way. So of course they're gonna be complimenting each other and showing each other encouragement. What did you expect?
Occasionally in these games, male characters do have to protect other men, but unlike scenarios in which men protect women, these less common instances don't reinforce pre-existing cultural attitudes about men, women, and gender. Similarly, the occasional situation in which a female character protects a male one, which happens in the 2013 Tomb Raider reboot, among other games, also isn't a problem, because it doesn't work to reinforce limiting, harmful ideas about women or men that already exist in our culture. In other words, we live in a culture that says, generally speaking, men should be the protectors and women should be the protected.
Again, because typically men are the ones who go to war. Men are the ones who take more dangerous jobs. I'm not saying that no woman has gone to war, no woman has taken on a dangerous job. Clearly they have. But the majority of the workforce in construction zones, in the military, in law enforcement, the majority are men. So typically, men are going to be seen as protectors. Not saying women can't defend themselves, but typically, a man is going to be seen as a protector. It's okay for a woman to go to a man for protection. It's not a bad thing. Because that's what you're making it seem like. You're making it seem like a woman doesn't need a man. No woman need a man. It's okay if a woman goes to a man for help. It's okay if a woman goes to a man for protection. Just like how it's okay vice versa. It's okay for a man to go to a woman for help. If I know a woman who takes martial arts. If I was walking with that woman and somebody came up to us with a knife and said, "Give me all your money," I don't know shit about fighting. I'd never been in a fight in my life. I would immediately turn to her because I know that she actually has the skill and ability to protect me and herself. It's not a bad thing. I can admit when I need the assistance of the opposite gender. So can women. Stop making it sound like that women don't need the help of a man.
When women function as competent companions whose skills are more or less equal to those of the player character, it can challenge these ideas. The Last of Us goes against the grain by giving us the character of Tess, a somewhat rare and refreshing example of a woman who fights alongside the male protagonist. And the later Gears of War games do a decent job of including female squad members who are on equal footing with their male counterparts. And thankfully, we're seeing more games that complicate and subvert the old patterns, providing players with relationships with supporting characters who don't function as mere extensions of the player, but who feel like separate individual people.
It sounds like you're getting what you want. So what are you complaining about? What is this video for then? Because to me, or to you at least, it sounds like that you're getting the games, you're getting games where women are becoming more independent, women are becoming more strong and powerful, and they're not glorified door openers, in your words. So what are you complaining about?
The 2016 indie title One Night Stand throws players into a situation with a female character who clearly has her own feelings and her own desires.
Chloe! That was her name! Oh, sorry. I just remember the other girl's name from Uncharted that I forgot. Has nothing to do with anything. It was just annoying the hell out of me that it was on the tip of my tongue and I had no idea what her name was. But I remember now, so it's all good. Anyway, sorry, continue.
And communicating with her is a matter of trying to find some common ground for mutual understanding, not one in which the player is in total control of the situation.
Well, that's because this game is totally and 100% different. It is a polar opposite to the games that you were showing us before. You were showing us first-person shooters, action-adventure games, and all that jazz. Totally different games that have next to no RPG elements that would allow you to interact with your female companion in the way that you want. This game that you're showing us completely different. It clearly has a way for you to interact with this woman in a meaningful way because it has built-in RPG elements, because I don't know what it would be classified as, but I'm just going to classify it as an RPG of some sort because that's what it seems like. It looks like it has dialogue options for you to have a conversation with this girl. Totally different game.
In Left Behind, the wonderful add-on for The Last of Us, Ellie's companion Riley is not someone players can issue orders to or someone they have to protect. Riley is constantly active, often taking control of the situation, sometimes competing and being playful with Ellie, and as a result, she doesn't feel anything like the companion characters in most games, or even anything like Ellie herself felt in the original game. Instead, she feels much more like a real person accompanying Ellie on the journey.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the whole point of the story. That entire story's purpose was to show the bond between these two girls. That was the whole purpose of the story.
And while Trico in 2016's The Last Guardian may not be a human character, he does possess some of the characteristics we'd like to see more of in human companions in games.
Don't say we. Don't speak for the whole gaming community. You're the only one who's decided to make a deal about this. About nothing, really.
Asking Trico to do things isn't a simple matter of pushing a button and watching him immediately obey. He's not a simple tool, not just an extension of the player.
And again, that's the whole point. Now, I've never played The Last Guardian, but everything I've read up on it basically outlines that the main plot line is the bond and growing friendship between this boy and this weird dog bird thing called Trico. It's nothing like BioShock, where the main point of the game is to get Elizabeth out of Columbia. Those are two completely different stories.
Sometimes he's hesitant, reluctant, even frustrating, but this makes it feel more like he's a living, breathing creature with thoughts and feelings of his own, and by taking time to pet him, you can sometimes express your connection to him in ways that fall outside of the requirements of the gameplay and the story.
I feel like all I'm doing is just repeating myself in this video, but I'll say it again. They're not real, Anita. They are not real things, not real living people. They have no actual feelings. They were programmed to feel what they feel in the game.
And crucially, Trico is often the one protecting the player, rather than the other way around.
Well, no shit. If I was a little boy and I had a giant-ass dog-bird thing, I'd probably get him to protect me too.
He does not exist to fuel a power fantasy, but to allow for gameplay mechanics that focus on cooperation, care, and helping each other. When supporting female characters in games don't have this kind of depth, when they exist primarily to be protected or to be ordered around, they not only reinforce harmful ideas about gender.
What? What? Harmful ideas about gender? What? Anita, you are living in your own fantasy world. How would any of that create harmful ideas about gender? Even if anything that you were saying was true, had any fact to it, I still fail to see how it would create harmful thoughts and ideas about gender.
They also fail as characters. Regardless of their gender, race, class, or sexuality, a person is more than a tool, and more than a burden.
They're not real people, they're nothing but pixels on a screen that work and act the way that developers want them to.
And games can and should give us mechanics and stories that reflect that.
And there she goes, ending off the video, telling developers how they should make their video games. Anita, you do realize that video games, in a sense, are a form of art. Developers being the artists. Artists don't like being told how they should do their artwork. That's the whole point of them being artists, is creative freedom. But I'm not gonna drag this on any longer. This video is, damn, it's like 30 minutes long. Well, I had fun. I hope you all had fun watching, so thank you everybody for watching, to anybody who actually is watching this video. Sayonara, au revoir, all that good stuff. Fuck this chair.